Welcome back to the Anti-Fragile Mindset. I'm your host, Christine Reeves Beleznay. If you're new here, welcome. I'm a former world professional pair skater turned high-performance mindset coach. I've spent my life on the ice performing and competing in over 22 countries, and I've just released my new book, Glitz and Grit, Beyond the Spotlight. Today's episode is about a choice that every high performer has to face eventually. When is it time to push, and when is it time to protect? Today's episode is incredibly timely. The World Figure Skating Championships in Prague are just a few days away, but the roster looks very different than it did at the 2026 Olympics. We have historic number of medalists and competitors withdrawing, from Alysa Liu to Shaidorov and the Japanese pair team, as well as many others. And here's the thing, this isn't a scandal. This isn't laziness. This isn't athletes giving up. This is something much more interesting. This is athletes making strategic, intelligent decisions about their mental and physical well-being. They're making choices about their future career opportunities and life changes. And there's a lot we can learn from this moment. Then you have this special case, Ilya Malinin, the quad god. After a devastating 8th place finish at the Olympics, he's doing the opposite. He's leaning in. He's chasing redemption. Today, we are diving deep into the strategy behind these choices. We're going to discuss the why behind the big withdrawals and why it's a sign of elite intelligence and not weakness. Also, strategic withdrawals versus the redemption trap, with Ilya Malinin taking the ultimate mental gamble. And the Gogolov effect, how a Canadian underdog reclaimed his career by skating with nothing to lose. Also, the cold start. What happens to the alternates like Sarah Everhart, who have to flip the switch and with only days to mentally and physically prepare? And finally, a very personal story from my own career about the cost of returning to the ice before you're ready. So let's get into it. Segment 1, we're going to take on the strategy of the step back. Let's start with the facts. The list of athletes skipping Prague is getting quite long. Alysa Liu from the US. She made history as the first American woman to win the Olympic gold since Sarah Hughes in 2002. Since then, her life has been a whirlwind. She went from 300,000 Instagram followers to in the millions within weeks. She's been on Teen Vogue, talk shows, gala invitations, sponsorship opportunities, speaking engagements. Her choice to skip Worlds is about brand management versus performance. And here's what she said about withdrawing from Worlds. There's been a lot of exciting things happening since my return from Milan, so I'm taking some time for that. But there's more to the story. And in a follow-up interview in Oakland, she got more honest. She went on to say, but there are so many commitments that I have and activities that are overlapping with Worlds. And I also don't have that much time for training. I don't think I would be able to put out my best performance. And then she said something really important. I got to show my programs on the biggest stage, so I feel satisfied with that. That is mental and emotional clarity. She knows what matters to her. She accomplished her goal. She's not chasing validation from one more competition or another medal when she's not prepared. So her decision to step back, that's not weakness. That's self-awareness. That's protecting her mental health. Now, Mikhail Shaidorov from Kazakhstan, the most shocking gold medalist in history. He was 5th after the short program, delivered 5 quads in the free skate, and watch the favorites crumble. But look at his schedule over the last year, what he's done. 10 major international competitions in 14 months. He is physically and mentally exhausted. His team is calling it recovery and rehabilitation. And a statement from Kazakhstan's figure skating union? From January 2025 to February 2026, Mikhail's competed in 10 major international competitions, including the 2025 World Championships, Asian Games, 4 continents, Grand Prix qualifiers, and the finals, and now just the Olympics. His coach said, Olympic champion Mikhail Shaidorov is to take a break to complete recovery and rehabilitation treatment. 10 competitions in 14 months, culminating in the most pressure-filled performance of his life. And now he needs rest, physical rest, mental rest, emotional rest. This is an athlete and coaching team who understand recovery as part of high performance. And sometimes that need for recovery doesn't happen at the most optimum times. But when it's necessary, it's crucial to listen and act. The Japanese pair, Olympic champions, they admitted they couldn't return to their physical and mental state, the pre-Olympic levels in time. These are 2 defending world champions who won in 2023 and in 2025. They're also the new Olympic champions. Their story at the Olympics is actually really interesting from a mental standpoint. They were 5th after the short program, which I'm sure was disappointing for them. But instead of spiraling or giving up, they came back and they skated a personal best free skate to win the gold. Now that's mental resilience in action. So why skip the worlds when you're at your peak? They said it themselves in a statement through the Japanese Skating Federation. This season, our main goal was the Olympics. And from the start of the season, we hadn't really considered whether we would compete at Worlds. After winning the gold medal at the Olympics, we realized it would be difficult to return our physical and mental condition to pre-Olympic levels in time for Worlds. Did you hear that? It would be difficult to return our physical and mental condition to pre-Olympic level. That's honest, and it's smart. They achieved their goal. They know they can't perform at the level they demand of themselves on that timeline. So they're choosing not to show up at a 70%. And then there's Madison Chock and Evan Bates, the U.S. ice dancers, 3-time world champions, Olympic silver medalists, just missing gold by fractions of a point. This would be the first time they've missed Worlds since 2012, and their statement was simple. We left it all on the ice in Milan. Our season feels complete with those 4 performances where we delivered our best. While we have decided not to compete at the World Championships, we hold dear, incredible memories from winning the last 3 years. Did you catch that? Our season feels complete. They're not trying to chase one more title. They showed up. They performed their best. They're satisfied. And now stepping back. And what about our own, Dudek and Deschamps? Their absence from the world's roster follows a challenging Olympic period where Dudek battled a training injury that initially forced them out of the Olympic team event. Although they recovered to compete in the individual pair event, they opted to skip Worlds, likely to rest or address lingering conditions. Up until the recording of this podcast, there's been no official statement from the pair team. So that's a lot of medalists and competitors that are choosing not to compete at Worlds. Is this common? Yes, it's very common for skaters to skip the post-Olympic World Championships. The season is long, it's brutal, and the Olympics are the peak. But here's what I want us to think about. Why is it so common? And what does that tell us about mental performance, pressure, and the cost of competing at the highest level? And that's what we're diving into next. So as a mindset coach, I call this strategic intelligence. The culture of sport is often no pain, no gain. We forget that recovery is a skill. These athletes have reached the summit. If they try to stay there without descending to refuel, they'll fall. Okay, so we've looked at who is skipping Worlds and why. Now let's talk about what this teaches us about mental performance. Because whether you're an Olympic skater, a coach, a parent of a competitive athlete, or someone in a high-pressure career, these lessons can apply to you too. What's the takeaway? Well, Know the difference between pushing through and pushing too far. There's a difference between mental toughness and mental recklessness. Mental toughness says, this is hard, but I'm capable. I'm going to dig deep and I'm going to perform. Mental recklessness says, I'm exhausted, unprepared, and not mentally ready, but I'm going to compete anyway because I feel like I should. Alysa Liu, withdrawing, that's not weakness. She knows she doesn't have time to train properly. She knows she's mentally exhausted from the media whirlwind. She knows she can't show up at her best. And she has other exciting opportunities in this moment. So she's choosing not to show up at 60%. That takes a lot of guts to make those kind of choices. Because the world is watching, fans are expecting you, the pressure to keep going is great. But showing up when you're not ready, or in that moment when it's something that you don't really want to do, that's how you get injured, burnout, traumatized, and full of regret. As a coach, one of the hardest conversations I have with athletes is getting them to understand and to know when they need to rest or recover from an injury. Athletes are trained to push, to fight, to never quit, to ignore pain, to persevere, and to get back up quickly when you fall. But there's a difference between quitting and strategic recovery. Quitting is giving up on your goals. Recovery is protecting your ability to achieve those goals long term. Another lesson we can learn from this is define what success means to you. And the Japanese pair team said it perfectly. Our main goal was the Olympics. They didn't say our goal was to win everything we could this season. They had a clear, defined goal. Olympics equals success. Everything else is bonus. I see this all the time with the athletes I coach. The ones who struggle the most are the ones who don't have a clear definition of success. They think, I should win this competition, and that one too. It's expected of me, or I should be perfect all the time, every time, or I should always skate clean. I hear this all the time. But when everything is a must win, the pressure, expectations become unbearable. The athletes who thrive, they know their primary goal. For some, it's nationals, others, Olympics. For others, it's a personal best. And once they achieve that, they can step back and say, I'm proud of that. I'm satisfied. Madison Chock and Evan Bates. Our season feels complete. That's the language of athletes who know what success means to them. So let me ask you, if you're an athlete, coach, or parent, as the final competitions finish up, what will success mean this season for you or for your athlete? Not every season, not the entire career. This season, what was or is the goal? And once you achieve it, will you have the courage to say, I'm satisfied, and step back and take the necessary break to recover both physically and mentally? And for each athlete, that time needed is different and specific to you and your needs. And now, lesson number 3, recovery is part of performance. Shaidorov competed in 10 major international competitions in 14 months. Think about that. Each one requiring peak physical condition, peak mental focus, and peak performance. And now his team is saying he needs recovery and rehabilitation. So here's what a lot of people don't understand about elite performance. 1, you can't stay at peak all the time. Your nervous system can't handle it. Your body can't handle it. And your mind certainly can't handle it. Consistent high performance requires cycles like push, recover, not push, breakdown. But sometimes the high performance culture glorifies the grind. No days off, sleep when you're dead. Champions are made when no one is watching. And yes, there's a lot of truth to all of that and to the hard work. It's absolutely necessary. But champions are also made during recovery. That's when your body builds back stronger. That's when your nervous system resets. And that's when your mind integrates the lessons. And yes, I learned this the hard way. There were seasons where I competed injured, where I pushed when my body was screaming at me to stop. Even as a professional, there were times I performed multiple shows a night in agony and in tears just warming up for the show. And you know what happened? I didn't perform better. My performance diminished and the recovery was longer. My mind wasn't focused from all of the fatigue of performing in pain. I wasn't mentally sharp. I was just surviving. And that's not high performance. High performance requires you to be fresh, physically recovered, mentally sharp, emotionally regulated. If Shaidorov showed up at Worlds exhausted, burnt out, mentally drained, would he skate well? Maybe. Would he win? Hard to say. Would it damage his confidence? Possibly. Would it increase injury risk? Again, possibly. So he and his team are making a smart call. Rest now, rebuild, come back stronger next season. He had nothing to prove. And so as we go into our next segment, the redemption trap, now let's talk about the one who is going, Ilya. Ilya was the coronation pick, the quad god. He had won every event for 2 seasons, but on Friday the 13th in Milan, in his own words, he blew it. He fell twice, finished 8th, and said his mind just felt overwhelmed by the pressure. He said in interviews, all of this pressure, all of this media, and just being the Olympic gold hopeful was just too much to handle. Honestly, before getting into my starting pose, I just felt all of those traumatic memories, all of those thoughts really just rush in. It just felt so overwhelming. Can you imagine? You're 21 years old. The entire world is watching. You're supposed to win. Everyone is talking about you, expecting you to be perfect, to win gold. And in that moment that matters most, your mind betrays you. The pressure crushes you and you fall. That's the mental game. That's what we're talking about when we talk about performing under pressure. It's not just physical. It's not just all your technical work. It's, can your mind handle the weight of expectation? Can you filter out the expectations of country, hometown, club, friends, family, coaches, and your own expectations? And in that moment, Ilya couldn't. Not because he's weak, but because he's human. And maybe he didn't mentally prepare well enough. I don't know. So here's the question. After that devastating experience, what does Ilya do? Does he step back like the others? Does he take time, recover, process, heal? No. He's competing at Worlds. And here's what he said about it. I'm looking forward to getting myself that redemption competition, as I like to call it. I can be satisfied with it if everything goes well. Ilya is chasing redemption. He wants to prove Milano wasn't him. He wants to prove to himself, to the world, that the Olympics wasn't who he is, that he can perform under pressure, that he's still the quad god. Now, is this the right choice for him? I don't know. Only he and his team can answer that. But what's the psychological risk? When an athlete seeks redemption, they're often fueled by away from motivation. This means their primary driver is to escape a negative state, feeling, or experience, like the shame or embarrassment of a loss, the fear of being seen as a failure, or like Ilya, the pain of an Olympic upset. The focus is less looking at the goal. You're looking over your shoulder, that past experience, the thing that you're trying to leave behind. And so the trap is, it is incredibly powerful in the short term, like a burst of adrenaline to escape a threat, but it's stress-based. You have to stay in that bad or negative state to remain motivated, because once you feel safe or you have fixed the immediate problem, the motivation often vanishes, leading to inconsistent or stop-start performance quality. So maybe he's trying to escape the embarrassment and the feeling of failure of eighth place. When you skate for redemption, you're often tight, hyper-vigilant, and defensive. In a sport where you need to rotate 4 times in the air, tension is the enemy. But here's what's interesting from a mental performance standpoint. Sometimes the best way to recover from a traumatic performance is to get right back out there quickly. That old concept called getting back up on the horse. When you have a catastrophic failure, there's often 2 approaches that you can take. 1, step back, process, heal, come back when you're ready. Approach 2, get back out there immediately. Don't let the fear set in. Prove to yourself you can do it. Both are valid. Both can work. It depends on the athlete. For some athletes, stepping back after a traumatic experience is essential. They need time to process, to rebuild confidence slowly, to work through those mental blocks. For others, stepping back makes things worse. The fear grows, the doubt deepens. The longer you wait, the harder it gets. Think about it like falling off a bike. Some kids need a minute. They need to get a cry, get a hug, feel safe again. Other kids, they want to get right back on that bike. And if they don't, the fear takes root. So Ilya is choosing to get back on that bike. Now, here's the key. This only works if he's actually ready, if he's had time to work through what happened mentally, if he's rebuilt his confidence in training, if he's addressed the mental blocks that showed up at the Olympics. If he's just showing up to Worlds without doing that work, it could make things worse. But if his team has been working with him, if he's had sports psychology support, if he's processed the experience and rebuilt his mental game, then Worlds could be exactly what he needs. A chance to rewrite the narrative, to prove resilience, a chance to show the world and himself that he's more than one bad performance. So the lesson here is, there's no one-size-fits-all approach. Alysa Liu needs to step back. That's her path to protecting her mental health. Ilya seems to need to compete, and that might be his path to mental recovery. Both are valid. Both require self-awareness. Both require an honest assessment of, what do I actually really need right now? And so if you're an athlete facing a similar choice, or a coach helping an athlete make that choice, the question isn't, what would someone else do, or what do other people do? The question is, what does this athlete right now need? Or what do I, as an athlete, need right now? Some need rest. Some need redemption. Both are okay. So a quick tip for skaters: if you're in a redemption or I need to prove myself mindset, you need a sensory reset to stay present. That big deep breath, in through the nose for 4, holding for 6, exhaling out through the mouth for 7. On the ice, feel the cold. Acknowledge the air on your skin. Feel the blades on the ice. Connect to the pressure of the blades, the sound. Feel your skin. Rub your thumb and finger together. Any of these can pull you out of that post-poor performance ghost of the past and back into the here and now, resetting you to the present moment. And now, as we go into segment 4, the underdog and the alternate. Being a Canadian and a former competitor, I was so moved by Stephen Gogolov. He was a former prodigy who nearly quit due to back injuries, growth spurts, and he went to Milano with modest expectations, and he finished 5th, the best Canadian result in a decade. Stephen had the freedom of the underdog, while Ilya was skating to protect a crown. Stephen was skating for himself, it seemed. He had the second best free skate of the night because he felt unburdened of expectation of those should-haves or have-tos. But what about the alternates? With Alysa and others out, skaters like Sarah Everhart are getting the call-up. This is the cold start, when you go from spectator to world competitor in a matter of days. The instinct to go to panic training. My advice, trust the bank. You can't cram for a world championships in a couple of days, and you don't need to. Your fitness is already in the bank from the whole season of training. Your only job now is to manage the adrenaline spike. And a great tool is breath work. In my book, Glitz and Grit Beyond the Spotlight, I write about the parts of my career I used to have regrets over. I spent years of performing, and I remember pushing through a serious injury just to keep a show contract. I thought I was being tough, a real show skater, but the pain was so high that my performance deteriorated. I didn't save my contract. In fact, I lost it because I was unable to continue. The injury had gotten to the point of needing a year to heal well. And even harder to write about was returning to show skating just 6 weeks after giving birth to my son. My body was different. It hadn't had the time to heal. It was weak. Every movement was painful. I felt heavy and slow. My mind was fractured. I was suffering from deep self-doubt, body dysmorphia, mental and emotional instability, fatigue, and depression. And being a pair skater, that tension wasn't mine alone to deal with. It became a wedge between me and my partner, who is also my husband. We talk about the grit of landing triples and quads. And I know the grit needed to learn and land a triple. I've done that. But for me, the real grit was surviving the loss of my career, my marriage, my identity, and figuring out how to be a single mom and reinvent myself in the role of a coach, the teacher, rather than the performer under the spotlights. So in Glitz and Grit, I talk about the 3 phases of the athlete journey. Phase 1, becoming. You're building skills, your identity, your competitive self. Phase 2, performing. You're at your peak. You're competing, achieving, in the spotlight. And phase 3, transitioning. That's when the spotlight fades and you're figuring out what comes next. Most books about elite sport focus on phases 1 and 2, how to train, how to win, how to perform under pressure. But phase 3, rarely does anyone talk about phase 3. And that's the phase that breaks people. I write about my own phase 3 in my book. The depression I experienced when I stopped competing and performing, the loss of purpose, identity, the feeling that I'd peaked and it was all downhill from there. And then slowly, painfully, the process of rebuilding, of discovering that I could be more than just a skater, that I could be a coach, an author, a mentor, a whole person with value beyond what I could do on the ice. So if you're listening and you're an athlete in phase 3 or approaching it, I want you to know you're not your performance. You are not your medals. You are not your last competitive result. You are a whole, valuable human being. And the skills you developed as an athlete, mental resilience, work ethic, the ability to perform under pressure, those translate. They transfer to whatever you do next, whether that's coaching like me, or business, or going to university, into the arts, or parenting, or something completely different. Your athletic career is a chapter. It's not the whole book. And that's what Glitz and Grit is all about. It's about surviving the spotlight. And more importantly, it's about thriving after the spotlight fades. If that resonates with you, check it out. It's in stores everywhere, Indigo Chapters, Barnes & Noble, and there are links to the book on my website, christinereeves.ca. Or if you're in the Toronto area, I'm doing a book signing at Indigo Chapters, Sherway Gardens, April 12th from 12 till 3 p.m. Come say hi. So, as we're about to watch Worlds in Prague unfold, I would love to hear from you. The redemptive path. Do you think Ilya's choice to get back on the horse immediately is the right move for his mental health? And have you had your redemptive moment? The step back. If you were an Olympic gold medalist, could you walk away from a world title to protect your mental peace? Have you had to do this before a big competition that was really important to you? And the identity pivot. Have you ever felt that deterioration in your own career or life, the Dimming of the spotlight on one chapter. How did you know it was time to pivot? Or were you forced to pivot and felt the, oh no, what now? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm especially curious to hear from parents and coaches too. How do we teach our kids to know the difference between what's grit and what's harm? If you want to read the full story of my journey, you can grab Glitz and Grit Beyond the Spotlight from the link down in my bio. Check out the show notes for a sneak peek of Chapter 8, New Rinks, New Rhythms from the book. I'm Christine Reeves Beleznay. Thank you for being a part of the anti-fragile community. Let's chat about the worlds in Prague, and I'll see you in the comments.